Folks, can we be realistic for a second, please? No shit, a deal didn't get done. Pardon my language. Obviously, a deal didn't get done last night. This was the first real time these two sides sat across the table from each other and tried to actually...
Can we be realistic for a second? That's not the tone of someone celebrating progress. That's the tone of someone managing expectations after a marathon negotiation that went absolutely nowhere. March 10th was supposed to be the deadline, the day a deal had to get done or the season would be delayed. And after 11 hours locked in a Manhattan hotel room, the WNBA Players Association and league executives walked out with nothing.
We got Brianna Turner, Aneka Ogwumike, Brianna Stewart, Alicia Clark, Kathy Engelbert, New York Liberty owner. The first time these two parties are in the room together, actually trying to, dare I say negotiate? Dare I even use the word?
This was the first time these two sides actually sat across from each other in person. Brianna Stewart, Nika Ogwumike, Brianna Turner, Alicia Clark representing the players, Kathy Engelbert, Liberty owner Claire Wasai, and league operations head Bethany Donovan representing the owners. After months of proposals going back and forth through lawyers and emails, they finally decided to do what should have happened in December: get in a room and negotiate face to face. The timing alone tells you how unserious this process has been.
Kathy Engelbert, she says she still wants this to be a win-win on both sides. The owners, the WNBA, they need to throw these players something that they can at least think, oh, well, we got that. This is a win. We got to take this as a win and leave it. And the players, they want something transformational. And I'd argue the WNBA's current offer is transformational. A 4x rate.
Here's what makes this fascinating. The league's current offer is objectively transformational. 4 times salary increases across the board, a salary cap jumping to over $5.5 million, pregnant players gaining no trade protection, additional roster spots for developmental players, free league pass for all players. These aren't minor adjustments. This is a complete restructuring of how WNBA players are compensated. But the players walked away from it, which means either they're holding out for something significantly bigger, or there's a fundamental disconnect about what transformational actually means.
Pregnant players saying, yeah, you can't trade me. Transformational. Adding additional roster spots for developmental players. Transformational. Free league pass. The offer on the table is fairly transformational. It's just not good enough for the players.
And this is the mental jujitsu the owners are trying to figure out right now. How do you package a deal that lets the players feel like they won, even if the numbers don't move much further? Because that's what this comes down to. The players don't just want more money. They want to walk out of that room feeling like they extracted something the owners didn't want to give up. They want a victory they can sell to their membership. The owners know this, which is why Kathy Engelbert keeps saying she wants a win-win deal. She's not just talking about economics. She's talking about optics.
WNBA players meet for overnight CBA talks. No deal yet. The sides gathered at a Midtown Manhattan hotel in the early evening Tuesday for a meeting that went well past midnight into Wednesday. Annie Costabile, she was on scene. Alexa Filippo, she was on scene. Howard Megdal's co-host, I'm so sorry, I forgot your name. She was on scene. And the one and only, the man himself, Venom Reacts, was on scene as well.
Let's talk about what actually happened that night. The meeting started around 5 p.m. at the Langham Hotel in Midtown Manhattan. By the time the players left through a side entrance just before 3 a.m., they'd been negotiating for nearly 10 hours. And here's the detail that matters. They left through the side entrance, not the main entrance where media was camped out. The side entrance. That's a deliberate choice. Either they were trying to avoid questions they didn't want to answer, or someone told them the optics of walking past cameras after a failed negotiation wouldn't help their position. Either way, it signals they knew this wasn't going well.
Making no comments to media as they exited. Now my question is, were they walking towards the main entrance? Said, oh, is that the media out there? Oh, let's go out the side entrance, girls. The media said, oh, run to the side entrance. Hey, any questions? No? Oh, no, okay. They left out the side entrance. WNBPA Executive Director Terry Carmichael Jackson just spoke to media, recapping.
Terry Carmichael Jackson, the executive director of the Players Association, did eventually speak to media. Her exact words, "I would describe the last 10 to 11 hours as a lot of conversation going in the right direction. Not, we made significant progress, not, we're close to a deal, just conversation going in the right direction. That's lawyer speak for we talked and didn't kill each other." It's the kind of statement you make when you need to sound optimistic but can't point to any actual breakthroughs. And when asked if a deal would be reached in the coming days, she deflected. "The only thing I'm going to say is that conversations are continuing." Translation, we have no idea when this ends.
Are we going to get something done by next week? Nothing done last night. How much progress was actually made? I would describe the last 10, 11 hours as a lot of conversation going in the right direction. Well, that's strange. What would you categorize the last few proposals that the WNBA sent you? The wrong direction?
Here's the question nobody's asking. What changed between the last proposal and this marathon session? Because if the league's previous offers were moving in the wrong direction, as Jackson implied, then something significant must have shifted during those 11 hours to make the conversation suddenly move in the right direction. Did the salary cap number move? Did the revenue sharing percentage increase from the reported 15%? Or did the owners just throw in a bunch of smaller concessions, stocking stuffers, instead of the big present under the tree, hoping the cumulative effect would feel like progress?
I wouldn't hold my breath. Easter isn't too far away. If we know anything about the Players Association, they're going to use Easter to take some type of stab at the owners if a deal's not met. Maybe they open up an Easter egg and, hey, pay us what you owe us.
Because that's a real negotiating tactic. When you can't move on the main number, you add a dozen smaller items that individually don't cost much, but collectively create the impression of generosity. Better travel accommodations, increased per diems, enhanced mental health resources, expanded maternity benefits, all good things, all things the players deserve, but none of them addressing the core issue. How much of the league's new media revenue actually goes to the players?
It's complex, but we're working towards a win-win deal. Like we've been saying, transformational deal for these players that balances all the things we've been trying to balance with continued investment by our owners, etc. So we're working hard towards that, and we will have work, and we still have work to do.
The league eventually conceded to giving players a percentage of revenue. That was a major shift because initially they refused to structure the deal that way at all. But the sides remain far apart on two critical details: how to calculate that revenue and what percentage of it goes to the players. Those two details are everything. Because you can agree to give someone 50% of revenue, but if you're calculating revenue differently than they are, you're not actually agreeing on anything. One side might include all media rights, sponsorships, and ticket sales. The other side might subtract operating costs, expansion fees, and capital investments first. Same percentage, completely different dollar amounts.
Energy level to continue to move this forward. Players Association Director Terry Carmichael Jackson told reporters outside the Langham, I would describe the last 10 hours a lot going in the right direction. When asked whether there was any indications the deal would be reached in the coming days, Jackson said, the only thing I'm going to say is that the conversations are continuing. The March 10th deadline comes and goes. Last week in Miami, two of the biggest stars said the players and league should meet for a marathon labor meeting. The league had set its deadline for starting the season on time was March 10th, but that deadline had only been communicated in recent weeks. The divide between the players and owners has remained the same for over a year. How to share the enormous amount of new money flooding into the WNBA, courtesy of...
Let's zoom out for a second and look at the bigger picture here. The WNBA just signed a media deal that brings in significantly more money than their previous agreement. Adam Silver negotiated that deal as part of the NBA's broader media rights package, and Kathy Engelbert worked to carve out as much of that value as possible specifically for the WNBA. That money is real. It's coming. The question is how it gets distributed. The players see that money and think, we're the product, we should get the majority of it. The owners see that money and think, we've been losing money for 25 years, this is our chance to finally break even or turn a profit. Both perspectives make sense, both are legitimate, and that's why this negotiation is so difficult. It's not about greed on either side. It's about two groups with fundamentally different ideas about what this league should prioritize right now. Immediate player compensation or long-term financial sustainability. Here's what makes the timing of this negotiation so frustrating. The March 10th deadline wasn't some arbitrary date the league pulled out of nowhere. That was the date they needed a deal finalized to start the season on time. Training camps, preseason games, marketing campaigns, broadcast schedules, all of that requires lead time. And yet the first in-person negotiation happened on deadline day. Think about that. Months of back and forth through proposals and counter-proposals, and nobody thought to say, maybe we should sit down in a room together until the actual deadline arrived. The Players Association didn't request an in-person meeting in December or January or February. They waited until March 10th. Why? Because the players were busy with Unrivaled. They were busy with Athletes Unlimited. They were busy with overseas contracts and brand deals and everything else that fills the WNBA offseason. And look, that's their right. They're independent contractors who can pursue whatever opportunities they want. But you can't spend 3 months focused on other priorities and then act surprised when the negotiation goes down to the wire. The league shares blame too. They could have pushed harder for in-person meetings earlier. They could have set an earlier deadline. But at some point, if you're the side asking for more money, it's on you to prioritize getting that money. And the players didn't treat this negotiation like a priority until it became a crisis. Now let's talk about what happens next, because the season isn't starting on time. That's already decided, even if nobody's officially announced it yet. You can't finalize a CBA, get it ratified by all parties, restructure contracts, conduct free agency, and prepare for a season in a matter of days. It's not physically possible. So the question becomes, how long does this drag out? Do we get a deal in the next week and start the season in early April? Do we lose a month and start in late April or May? Or does this turn into a genuine labor dispute where games get canceled and the entire season is in jeopardy? The leverage here is interesting. The players have leverage because the league needs them. You can't have a WNBA season without players. But the owners have leverage too, because most of these players don't have the financial cushion to go months without paychecks. Overseas seasons are ending. Unrivaled is over. Athletes Unlimited wraps up soon. The window where players can earn money elsewhere is closing. That creates pressure on both sides to get a deal done. But it also creates the risk of a bad deal, where one side caves under financial pressure and agrees to terms they'll regret later. And bad deals create resentment that poisons the relationship for years. Look at what Kathy Engelbert said when she finally left the hotel at 5:20 a.m. It's complex, but we're working towards a win-win deal, a transformational deal for these players that balances all the things we've been trying to balance with continued investment by our owners. Then she added, we still have work to do. That phrasing, continued investment by our owners, is key. She's reminding everyone that the owners are still putting money into this league. They're not extracting profits, they're covering losses. And she's framing this negotiation as balancing player compensation against the owners' willingness to keep investing. That's a subtle threat. It's saying if you push too hard, some of these owners might decide this isn't worth it anymore. And maybe that's a bluff. Or maybe it's real. We know some WNBA teams are more financially stable than others. We know some owners are more committed than others. If this negotiation drags on and gets ugly, does someone decide to sell their team? Does expansion get delayed? Do plans for new arenas or practice facilities get shelved? The players probably think those threats are empty. They probably think the league has too much momentum right now, too much public attention and sponsor interest for the owners to walk away. And they might be right, but they might not be. And that uncertainty is what makes this negotiation so precarious. Here's the other factor nobody's talking about: the next CBA negotiation. Whatever deal gets signed now sets the baseline for the next negotiation in 5 or 7 or 10 years. If the players accept 15% of revenue now, they're starting from 15% next time. If they hold out for 25% now, that's the new floor. So the players have an incentive to fight for every percentage point, even if it delays the season, because they're not just negotiating for 2025. They're negotiating for 2030 and beyond. The owners know this too, which is why they're not eager to set a precedent they can't sustain long term. This is why Terry Carmichael Jackson keeps using the word transformational. She's not just describing what the players want from this deal. She's describing what this deal needs to be to justify the fight. If they settle for incremental improvements, the narrative becomes the players folded under pressure. If they extract major concessions, the narrative becomes the players stood their ground and won. And in a league where narrative matters as much as numbers, that distinction is everything. So where does this end? My guess is we get a deal in the next 2 weeks. The pressure to start the season will build. Sponsors will start making noise. Broadcast partners will demand clarity. And both sides will find a compromise that lets them claim victory. The players will get a higher revenue share than 15%. Maybe not the 25 or 30% they want, but enough to call it a win. The owners will get cost certainty and a longer CBA term than the players wanted. Both sides will stand at a press conference and praise each other's professionalism and commitment to growing the game. And then we'll spend the next 5 years watching whether this deal actually works, whether the revenue projections hold up, whether the owner's investment continues, whether the players feel fairly compensated or start building resentment that explodes in the next negotiation. Because that's the thing about labor deals. They don't end disputes, they just pause them. And the better the deal, the longer the pause. The worse the deal, the shorter the peace. Right now, after 11 hours in a Manhattan hotel room and no agreement, we're watching two sides try to figure out if they can build something that lasts, or if they're just delaying the inevitable fight until next time. What do you think happens here? Do the players get the transformational deal they're demanding, or do the owners hold the line and force a compromise? Drop your prediction in the comments and let me know if you think this season starts on time or if we're headed for a real labor dispute. Hit that subscribe button if you want to follow this story as it develops, because this negotiation is far from over.